Comrade Fitzroy Lewis, a former T&Tec worker, a stalwart of the trade union movement, a stalwart of OWTU. We went into Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Company at what year?
1987, I believe, yeah.
At what age?
Yeah, 1987, 34 at the time.
And you retired in what year?
2013.
Oh, 2013. So that was like just an amalgamation of how many years did you spend as a worker at T&Tec?
20-something years, almost 30 years.
Okay. When you went into T&Tec, were you automatically a member of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union?
Yeah, immediately, yeah. As a matter of fact, before I started working at T&Tec, I had already been a member of the union.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were already there and you already were part of the culture of the union before?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I wasn't exposed to much at the time. I was working with a construction company, and there wasn't much interaction with the membership of the company. You find that the officers were not as the officers that you would meet today then, in the sense that there was an old fellow that I met as the chairman of it was a district committee, and the chairman was an old fellow, if I remember his name, Louis Pascal was his name.
Okay.
An old fellow. And but he wasn't as vibrant as I would have liked him to be, and I always used to be telling him about it, and then he keep telling me, he said, you will make a good union officer, you know, but your time will come just now. He used to keep telling me that. He said, take your time, the time will come just now. Yeah.
So, how soon after coming into T&Tec did you become a union officer, and what drew you to the fact that you needed to become a union officer?
Maybe about 2 years or so, I became a shop steward in T&Tec. And I grew up in a village in Pleasance Park where there were mainly oil workers, because as you know, when Pleasance Park was formed, it was only oil workers, Texaco workers.
Yeah.
And I grew up there, and I used to be involved in the village council and the sports club, in the drama group. I was involved in a lot of things in the community. So I had a lot of interaction, these oil workers, and they were always talking about the struggles that they were going through. And George Weeks was the President General of the union at that time.
Right.
And these workers were always talking about the struggles and them they were facing at Pointe-à-Pierre. As a matter of fact, my old man was a oil worker, ex-oil worker. He's deceased now.
Okay.
But he worked there and thing, and he was he wasn't an officer, but he was an avid participant in the affairs of the union.
Okay.
You know, follow all the struggles, took part in them, you know, yeah. So the union was always an attraction for me. And when I went in T&Tec and I saw what was going on, I realized that in the branch itself, a lot of party politics was playing.
Right.
And the P&M faction was dominating the branch. It was like they were controlling the branch as though it's a party group, you know. And I had a real problem with that. And when I took office, they tried to pull me into that same type of mentality, that P&M party mentality and thing. But I didn't want that, because all along I realized that the P&M party kept attacking the Oilfields Workers Trade Union. Since I know myself, it's like P&M always attacking OWTU. Like they have a real problem with OWTU. You know, I was reading some things from Eric Williams, and in his early days as Premier or Prime Minister, I can't remember for sure, if he was premier or prime minister at the time when he spoke about some Caribbean leaders, he called them idiots,
Right.
for getting involved in negotiations, in interfering in negotiations between unions and the companies and them. And he called them idiots. Yet still he was the same man. It was under his government that the ISA, the Industrial Stabilization Act, came about, that unions had to get together and fight against progressive trade unions, I should say, because some of the unions were already dominated by the P&M. So I'm saying that progressive unions fought against the Industrial Stabilization Act and forced them to make some changes to it, including the name they call it the Industrial Relations Act, the IRA that we know today, but originally was the Industrial Stabilization Act and thing. You know, so in the branch, when I watched how the officers and them were PNMites, and they were just, sometimes they're not carrying the true position of the union, you know. And I moved on after a while from being a shop steward and I became the secretary of the branch, you know, and introduced a branch paper, and we started writing
the bulletins.
Yeah, the branch bulletins. Them, as a matter of fact, it was called Central Power.
Oh.
Yeah, and we used to produce these bulletins and then, but I came into direct confrontation with the PNMites in the yard. And some years after being president of the branch, I ended up being president of the branch. I challenged the president and won the election and thing, and took over the branch, you know. And I could remember a meeting in the yard, a branch meeting, where a PNMite man, I could call his name, you know, Prince Daniel, a strong PNMite man in the yard, stood up in a branch meeting and said, "Comrade President, you're doing good things. You're teaching us plenty. I like how you're operating real good as a branch president, but we don't want you to be the branch president." Yeah, just so. And a lot of members in the meeting flared up and, you know, almost physically attack him for that. You know, I myself who had to restrain men from attacking him.
Wow.
Yeah, but I faced that in the branch. You know, but the union is a very, very important thing. I don't know if I could stress the importance of a union in T&Tec or in any company. Yeah.
And that's something that I wanted you to point out, because one of the things that we do is that what you would realize is that we have a social media presence that's very, very strong.
Yeah.
And it's current. And one of the things that lately, and every time we read, and I guess it is something that we can't shield ourselves from, because at the end of the day, we are a democratic society and everybody is entitled to their views and their points. But unfortunately, one of the things is that when persons are faced with grievances, rather than challenge the persons who have caused them the grievance, they come at the union.
Yeah.
And there was a comment that says, for example, that unions have killed most industries in Trinidad and Tobago. So I want you to speak on that.
Yeah, that's so far from the truth. Like people who have been misled and or have not been paying attention to what has been taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. They, even if you wasn't paying attention before, but let's say from independence, you start to pay attention to what's taking place in Trinidad and Tobago, and you would realize that every time Trinidad and Tobago as a nation make some leap forward, you know, make some type of progress, it was because of the urgings, let me put it mildly that way, of the trade union movement. Every time. We could go as far back You know, I mean, I wasn't there, I didn't born as yet. But when I read the history of the labor movement and the actions of unions, you would see the contributions, the valuable contributions that unions have made. Were it not for the actions of Butler and the other union members, we would not have gotten adult franchise when we got it.
And that is the thing, that's one of the things that to me, when I hear how persons attack the trade union, what they don't realize is that the same, and they attack us on, a lot of times on political lines. The fact of the matter is that the reason you can vote today is because of the contribution of the trade union movement.
But you see, the history of the trade union movement has been suppressed. If there's a personal position, opinion, I believe that if the true history of the labor movement, the trade unions in Trinidad, was taught in the schools from primary school, I think organizations or entities like P&M and UNC will not survive in this country, because people would have been at a different level of consciousness. In the 70s, as a youth man, I now leave school. I used to go to St. Mary's College. Left school, you know, and the actions that was taking place in Trinidad at the time, led by the National Joint Action Committee, it wasn't only students or people just on the streets, you know. It was organized labor that was on the streets. You know. When they say the National Joint Action Committee, it wasn't just university students. The majority of people who used to be on the streets demonstrating in Trinidad and Tobago, these massive demonstrations we used to have in Trinidad and Tobago, these demonstrations were people by workers organized by their unions.
And the thing is, we fail to recognize that contribution right now, because we have been so, I think that one of the things is that we have been so brainwashed, if that is the word that I want to use. Some persons might say that's the wrong word to use, but the reality is that it's been so much in our culture to think a particular way, that rather than actually look for the truth or seek out the truth or actually accept a truth,
look, I
like to create a narrative.
Look, on today's Guardian, I have a copy of the Guardian here. On today's Guardian, there's a person, I don't know if it's just a pen name that's used, but they're frequently in the news, you know, writing under the name of Lynette Joseph. That person has always been antagonistic and critical of the unions and them. In today's Guardian, I want to show you, look at here, this flared bottom trousers, can skirt bullying tactics from trade unions. What she actually saying is that the unions outdated. This is an old time wear.
Right.
So the unions outdated in their actions, the way they try to deal in the society today. So this woman, if that is really her name, you know, she has always been like this to the labor movement, but deliberately so, because I want to tell myself that she is a PNMite, if it's a she, and if this is really her name.
What do you say to persons who think that particularly?
They lost, they misguided, they lost, you see. And some people, individuals, you know, young workers too, some young workers believe that the unions put in local parlance, local vernacular, that unions messing up things.
Yeah.
They're messing up things.
You get a lot of young comments about that.
Yeah, messing up things because they don't understand, and they never took time to check the history of the labor movement, the history of their own union. They never really take the time to check that. And some of them believe that they could negotiate individually and all, you know, because there was a management pushed that tactic somewhere in the early 90s. They were talking about the atomization of the workforce, where they were trying to put workers against each other. Everybody see for themselves. Forget union. Forget collective bargaining.
Was that did that exist in T&Tec?
They failed in that.
So
they tried to. They tried. Yes. I'll give you an example. There was a time there was an acting position, and management knew who is the person who was supposed to get the acting. You know what they did? They took that person's best friend and give them the acting to do. Now, I was the branch president, and the worker who was supposed to get the acting came to me. You know, after I saw the other girl acting, but I didn't say anything. And about 2 weeks passed, and before this comrade came to me as the branch president, complaining that she was bypassed, and what is the union going to do about it? Well, I engaged management in discussions about it, and I took up a matter, and management agreed that she should be given the acting. So they had to remove the person who they had put there to act and put the rightful person in the position. But it cost management, because you already had an agreement with the person who you put to act for a certain period of time. So management had to pay for that period of acting for the both of them. And so it cost management to pay. They had to pay twice for the same position.
And one of the things we talk about with regards to many of our state entities is about with regards to wastage. And right there you see an example of wastage. And that is not wastage of their money, but that is wastage of the public money. And at the end of the day, they're finding money to pay somebody 2 times salary, but you can't find money to actually pay workers the increase that they require.
You see, several times management will take positions that don't make any sense, really. Like, it just don't make any sense. And you know, they are like if they're waiting for you to correct them. There was an example. There was a time a tower fell with a worker. You know the big towers T&Tec have, where the high voltage lines and them passing. The tower fell. But T&Tec had already banned morning meetings, and the next day workers were going about their duties as normal, trucks looking to leave the yard. As the branch president, I couldn't take that. I decided to call the workers and them to a meeting, a morning meeting, before work start. You know, I mean.
So you basically went against management's authority.
Yes.
In the interest of workers.
Yes. You know, if I didn't have the backings of the OWTU, I would not do that. But I know that the union is there as my protection.
Right.
You see?
So it talks about the importance of why it's important to have a union, especially in industries like that.
I called in all the workers and them and spoke to them about this incident that took place the day before, right? Because management didn't say anything, you know. Unfortunately, after the meeting, the management called me upstairs to the office while keeping a meeting, and the general manager has already sent out a notice that they don't want any more morning meetings in T&Tec. So I told them that a tower fall with a worker, a linesman, and this morning linesmen are heading out to work, and possibly they may have to climb another tower. But you all have not, as management, you all have not spoken to these linesmen and them, these workers, and let them know whether or not it is safe to climb the other towers and them, because the need may arise where workmen may have to do work on a tower. Is it safe? But management did nothing. They were just allowing the workers and them to go out. Now, without the union, workers would have been at the mercy of management, you know. But they couldn't interfere with me because they're wrong. They know what they were supposed to do and they just didn't do it. And it's only the intervention of the union that brought about some measure of humanity, some measure of respectability to the situation. And you know, coincidentally, it was a meeting in Central that caused T&Tec management to ban morning meetings, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a morning where the general manager at that time was Stanley Utley, and he came to the area to address all the workers early morning. But our President General, Aaron MacLeod, came to the area. I had invited him previous to that to come to the area that morning. So the both of them met.
And they clashed.
Yeah. And only one worker went upstairs to the conference room to hear what the general manager had to say.
Right.
Everybody else went to the change room where the President General was addressing the workers. You know, it was that by the evening there was a notice to all the T&Tec areas: no more morning meetings. And as I say, coincidentally, I had to keep the first morning meeting after that.
Right.
You know?
Oh, you actually kept it during the ban.
Well, during the ban.
You defied their authority.
Well, I didn't have a choice. As the union, the main union representative in the area, the branch president, I would be failing in my duty if I didn't talk to the workers about that major incident that took place. A tower fought with our linesman. That linesman today, he was forced to retire medically unfit because of that. Yeah, today he works taxi, Curab San Fernando. If the true history and the unions of the labor movement wasn't suppressed, you know, and if P&M, I want to stress that too, you know, that P&M is responsible for this misguided perception about the trade unions, you know. And today we seen it expose it in the open now, because I don't know which union that hasn't come under attack, but I know that the OWTU come under major attack, because OWTU has always been the piloting union. A lot of the benefits that people get today in Trinidad and Tobago were piloted by the Oilfields Workers Trade Union. The social wage program is piloted by OWTU. We who first started talking about daycare center and these type of things, yeah, OWTU is the union. It wasn't any individual. It was a collective thing. It's union.
And that's what people fail to realize. Even that whole OSH Act that we have today, it was a brainchild of the union.
The labor movement.
The labor movement.
Yes.
So
the nationalization, as we used to put, we should control the commanding heights of the economy, as they used to say. The elder fellas, the fellas before me, used to talk about controlling the commanding heights of the economy. We want to nationalize the oil refinery or oil industry, take control of it. Yeah, you see, the unions who pushed for that, but there was always this fight back from the chambers and the P&M
But one of the things we know in society, there will always be a fight back, because at the end of the day, the workers fight for workers.
Yeah.
And the reality is that there will always be an opposition towards workers.
No, but
owning what really belongs to them.
You see, people have been so misled, especially the young people. They kind of isolated from the truth. Yeah. What it is the union do that you could blame the unions for the position a company in. Every union that go to negotiate with a company will not do things to damage that company where its members work in.
And that's sometimes what people fail to realize, because they take a narrative, they hear a narrative, and they run with it because I think it's two things, it's a couple of things, but one is because of the fact that we are not educated our own history, firstly and foremost. But two, I also think that, and I know you stress on the fact of the PNM, but I want to go, because I think that it's more than just the PNM.
Yeah, well, so with the PNM,
political kind of brainwashing.
The chambers and the
society,
chambers of commerce.
Those who own the power with regards to the money.
Yes, you see what happened is this, and it's still happening. They own and control the media, right? I mean, in Trinidad, when I was small, as a little fella growing up, there were only two radio stations, Radio Trinidad and Radio Guardian, or you used to say 610 and 7:30.
Right.
And they used to have a government program on the radio. I think it used to be 5:30. My old man, like them other oil workers, and them used to insist that we listen to the government program, follow what's happening in the country. I don't know how many people, how many youths and them parents would have been telling them the same thing that my old man used to be telling me. Pay attention to what's going on in the country. Listen to the government program so you know what's going on. So I already had that kind of outlook.
Right.
You see? So when I went in T&Tec, I didn't go in T&Tec empty, so to speak, where the missionaries of the political parties and them going to be able to carry me down a road that I know I'm not supposed to be going.
Right.
They couldn't do me that because I had already equipped myself with certain information about the labor movement, and then I was always a person who liked to read.
So I know that you have been the president of the Central Branch. You came in through T&Tec. You served as shop steward. You served as secretary.
I was an extra delegate.
You were, right?
Yeah, I passed through this.
So you served on various positions throughout the union, and you came in as a young person.
Yeah.
And when you've spoken of what drew you to the movement and what drew you to the trade union to become a member, and as an employee of T&Tec, you've seen some of the things that has happened in T&Tec. You've experienced some things where even you as president, you were forced to actually go against management instruction when they had stopped morning meetings, and you had to take the decision and said that you were going to call a meeting because workers' lives were being put at danger, in danger as a result of management's decision.
Yeah. Indecision.
Indecision. There was a number, if you look at the branches, for example, and if you look at the list in not just in Central, but if you look in Arima, you look in Port of Spain, you look at San Fernando, you see a number of young persons on these branches. Persons who sometimes, it's alarming to say, but when they see you, they may say, Fitzroy who? Not understanding that behind you there is a great history, because of the fact that they have now come in and they are like fresh green, as they say, to the movement, to trade unionism, they've come into the branch, and they may see this as some form of, well, getting to be seen and getting to be known and being, you know, getting people to know them or some kind of a way. I want you to speak to these young people about the importance of being an officer of this union, not just of this union, but an officer of a trade union, and the role and responsibility that they have as they've taken up this mantle.
Yeah, I realize that union office is a very serious office, and as men who served before me would have said to me, union work doesn't have any thanks. The same people that you're representing, the same people you're fighting for, the same people that you actually putting your own job on the line for, these people and them don't appreciate or cannot appreciate what you're doing, the sacrifice that you're making. When you take up the job of a union officer, it could be lonely as well as it, you know, it could be embracing. But several workers, and I find too many, I don't blame them because they have not been given that information, they have not been given that knowledge. You see, I realize that the way the politics plays off in this country here, you keep the people ignorant, you starve them of knowledge, of the truth, and you could do them whatever you want to do them. And even if the union steps in, I step into an issue that was going to be profitable for a worker, and he's cussing me, he vexed me and things. I explaining to him what it is I'm doing and things. You know, when finally we get everything resolved and things, what he was asking, he was looking for a transfer, and he got injured, and he was looking for some other type of duty. Management agreed to give him something else to do, right? But the position he telling them he want to go and thing, and the position I telling him where he should go. Yeah, you see, it was two different positions, and he was going to be getting less money than where I was.
Where you were actually working in his benefit, working it for his benefit.
And he didn't understand that, you know, and he vexed me, you know. Yeah, I had to go and really talk to that. I had to pull it down, talk to you over and over and thing. He said, you want to use the Comrade President, use the President, you know. And finally he realized that what I was doing was the better thing for him, and he told me he said, Comrade President, sorry.
Right.
He said, Comrade President, sorry. You know, and this is something that we as experience as a union officer. Sometimes workers don't understand, and then too, you have to get versed in some of the labor laws and them, so that you don't mislead people, so that they don't cause people to get into hot water, because you familiarize yourself with the laws and then so you could give proper guidance to your membership. Now individually, if a man don't want to join the union and he feel, well, all he concerned about is that I come into work and I will get paid when I make my 40 hours, I will get paid, and never take the hindmost. They don't care about that until some incident, something happen, and then you come to the union. And you come to the union now, and you have to go through the process, you know. You have to go through this process for disciplinary action or whatever, but you have to go through the process, and then they start to understand, look, you really can't do this thing on your own, you know. And we would like to use the example, if I take one stick, I could break it, 2 sticks, I could break it, but if I take a handful, I can't break it.
Right.
So when we come together collectively, we are much stronger, and it takes a while for people to understand. But you have those who understand that. But again, I don't have a choice. Again, because of party politics, you will undermine the union.
Right, and that's a lot of what we're experiencing today.
Yeah.
Because one of the hardest things for me, in terms of managing, well, not managing, but being one of the admin in terms of our social media, and I have reached to the point of where I'm saying, if it is I'm not careful, these people, they can actually affect my mental health.
Yeah.
Because their attacks are, it's really and truly, sometimes it gets personal.
Yeah.
The attacks are sometimes nonsensical because they are attacking us for something that we did not do.
Yeah.
And it's really hard.
Okay,
sometimes.
did not OWTU tell Petrotrin, don't go ahead with this world gas to liquids plant?
But to them,
but they went ahead with it, and it cost Petrotrin dearly. It cost Trinidad and Tobago dearly.
Yeah.
Right now, people don't understand that. I find people concerned. It's still the union responsible for the demise of Petrotrin.
And that's the thing we have to deal with constantly, that lie.
You see?
That, as I say, the big lie.
You see? Now, the union will put out a publication, but it will not be as widespread as the state. No union by itself can fight the state, you know.
That's true.
Can't fight the state.
That is true.
We have to get together to fight the state.
Yes.
You see?
And that's one of the reasons that you saw that they were able to make big strides in the 60s and 70s and stuff, because they were together.
Yeah, there was that type of a level of consciousness that was prevailing in Trinidad and Tobago during the 70s, the 80s, and even into the early 90s. You know, there's a level of consciousness that was prevailing. And thing. That age group and thing were much more conscious than the present copper workers. The present copper workers come in, they meet benefits that they enjoy, they like, they appreciate. You have housing loan program that in T&Tec your pension money is security for you to get house and land. You have other benefits, and the maternity leave and whatnot. You have all these benefits and you pay you're reasonable, you know, or better than plenty, right? And that is it there. But you don't see it as the union in collective bargaining being able to extract these benefits that you enjoy. And then there was a time T&Tec bought some poles that were leaching a carcinogenic, and we refused to climb those poles on them. It wasn't the union that went and buy these poles. And if the union wasn't there, workers would have been forced to climb the pole, because even with the union, they kept insisting that we climb these poles on them, and we told them we're not climbing those poles on them. And then they brought some hazmat suits, these suits on them for people to put on to work on these poles on them. But the poles on them was these poles on them had been banned in Europe and Australia and other places.
Okay, so it was what you were saying, it was actually like giving out some hazardous chemicals?
Yes, it was leaching a carcinogenic thing, a cancer causing thing. You see, and if you notice, you see this in the union side, these are dangerous poles to have in the public, because you know it wooden poles and you know. You used to see little children passing on the road and they hugging up a lamppost.
I still lean on when I actually come out to get a taxi.
Yeah, you lean up on the lamppost and you're hugging it up and whatnot and thing. If it wasn't for the unions, these poles might have been spread all over the country. But because of the intervention of the union and the exposure that the union give, you know, T&Tec was forced to put these poles on them. They actually hide them in certain places. Yeah, I know it had some in Central, going up Grand Couva. They had placed some down by the beach, going down Quinam. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but we refuse to climb these poles. What I'm saying is that if a worker who don't care about union and believe that he could have defied T&Tec by himself, he would have been making a mistake.
He would be dead.
He not just being affected by the thing, but he would be just carrying out T&Tec instructions blindly, and the union who would educate workers and try to lift your level of consciousness about the safety or economics or whatever, because OWTU had seminars here with economists and all different levels, all different type of people used to come here and teach us and things. So we were equipped to go outside there and handle whatever situation confronts us in the company. But if you do understand the union that's played this kind of role, and then you will never see the union as being a benefit to you. As far as you're concerned, the union should be just limited to negotiating a wage increase for you. It is much more than just a wage increase. And everything has a political dimension. Most of the problems that workers face today have its genesis in political decisions. So you cannot say that the union should be separate from the politics, because, okay, when the government enact the IRA, that's a political decision.
Right.
That is but it impacts the labor movement. It impacts every worker. Your right to struggle. They're actually telling you how to fight.
That is true.
They're telling you how to fight, how long you could fight for, how long you could carry this phase of the struggle for, and then go in the industrial court.
Hence one of the reasons why T&Tec is an essential service and they cannot strike.
Yeah. Petrochem classified as an essential industry, T&Tec classified as an essential service.
Right.
There's a slight difference.
Okay.
You see, plenty workers today, they don't care about that. All they care about is that they're getting paid.
And unfortunately, that's
they care. That's all.
We have to fight.
And you see,
against.
they believe that they believe in that. You see, when the government do something, they see it as a favor, like it's a right. The government has its job to do. The government have to do certain things. It's not a favor that they're doing for you. It's not a favor. You could stand up and demand your rights. But individually, if you're outside of the union, you don't have no power. You don't have no strength by yourself.
And that's, I want to segue into the final thing, which is, again, to talk directly to young people. Young persons, T&Tec is now involved, the union is now involved in this, has been having these sporadic, these simultaneous actions, not strike action, but they've been having protest action, peaceful picketing at various workplaces, where they have been coming out before their work hour, even some on their lunch hour, and some after work, so that it is not disrupting the work of the commission. But they are taking their personal time to show their grievance. I want you to speak to these young people, to probably just to give them some guidance, support as to what they're doing, and what do you have to say to them?
The actions that T&Tec workers taken today could only benefit T&Tec workers and Trinidad by extension. It's a necessary action that must take place. As a matter of fact, I wish it was much more intense. I wish it was bigger than it is, but it is growing. It is growing. But at this point in time, I just personally wish it was much more robust and
thing than that. But I know that here everything takes time, and that to move from one stage to the next. So I am very tolerant and patient with the struggle. But really, I would like to see the tempo up, because
this struggle that T&Tec workers waging here now, this struggle is a struggle on behalf of all the workers in Trinidad and Tobago. If T&Tec workers fail here, the labor movement in trouble. If T&Tec workers, if OWTU, if they could stop OWTU, T&Tec workers, no, the rest of workers in Trinidad and Tobago in real problems, because the present government will they will be riding roughshod there now after this. You see, if you look at what is taking place and thing with this, I might stray a little bit, government and thing. Every independent institution that doesn't toe the line at this government come under attack. Everyone. I could name a few. If you know, the judiciary, the DPP, the Police Service Commission, the Auditor General. We have a lot. Every independent institution they interfere with. It seems as though right now there must be no opposition, and OWTU has been for years the only true opposition it has in this country. And if you could break OWTU, well, there's nothing. OWTU is the vehicle that poor people throughout this country could turn to. Has always been that. OWTU has always played that role. I mean, the little bit of the history of the union that I read, I know that this union has always been a community thing. And the young people and them, all I would tell them is to familiarize yourself with the history of the labor movement, especially the Oilfields Workers Trade Union. And then you will understand the true role that you're supposed to play in the workplace. And you see this thing they call democracy? Our work pays everybody inside and outside of the company. Workers, they have a say. Management have a say in how much workers get as remuneration for their work done. Right? The pay package. They decide that. If we had objected, they send it all the way up to the industrial court. Right? So they decide how much we get out of the money we work, allow the company to earn. We don't have a say in how much management does get. We don't have any say in how much they does get. But they have a say in how much we get. We don't have a say in how much money the company invests. We don't have a say in how much money the company saves. The only thing we have is our labor. We go to work and we must be contented with what we get as far as they're concerned. You see? So where's democracy? What democracy they're talking about? So when we talk about democracy and democracy at the workplace, people have to come and understand that we are the salt of the earth. We the salt. We are the producers of the wealth in this country. And we must have a say in the distribution of that wealth. And we cannot be just working, otherwise we just come like wage slaves.
It's not just about having a say, but you also need to be able to partake.
Yeah. Well, we must be involved in it, in these processes. And how much money T&Tec saving now? We want to know the position the company in, the financial position.
Didn't the minister say that they're actually owing NGC a couple?
T&Tec does buy natural gas from NGC, but then T&Tec does sell the gas. T&Tec does hand over the gas to PowerGen, the generating companies, and them. And when they don't make electricity, T&Tec does buy the electricity from them to sell to the public. So you tell me, in an arrangement like that, how could T&Tec make a profit? I buy natural gas from you. And when I buy the gas, I don't sell it. I hand it over to another entity. And when that entity produces the electricity, I buy it from them to sell to the people outside here. In an arrangement like that, how can I make a profit? Why blame the union? Is the union to blame for that arrangement?
Did the union privatize our electricity?
Is the government that decided against the wishes of the Oilfields Workers Trade Union to privatize generation, you know? Well, we are saying today that the government should reintegrate generation back into T&Tec. So that money, that gas bill that T&Tec have is not going to be on the back as it is now. Reintegrate generation into T&Tec as it used to be before. As a matter of fact, they should have never separate generation from transmission and distribution. The OWTU had advised against it. We fought against it. We fought against it. We had several meetings with them, you know, as part of the union team at that time, dealing with this thing, with the privatization generation. Yeah. It used to be like in Central, it used to be one branch. When I was the president of the branch, I was the president of the distribution and generation. Yeah, it was one branch, but since that they separated the thing, you have two branches now. You have Power Gen and you have T&Tec.
Right.
You know, but T&Tec pension plan and Power Gen pension plan remains the same. It's easy to reintegrate generation back into T&Tec. You're going to have to deal with the legislation and thing, and we're supposed to buy back the shares that is another company, a foreign company, having generation.
I saw the name this way.
Yeah, you know, it's not the union to blame. The union not to blame for the position that the transport service in. TU not to blame for that. And cement union to blame for the problems on the port. We highlight.
This is the thing, the government creates the problem, and rather than you go at the government, you come to the person who is actually bringing the solution.
Yeah, we highlighting and bringing solutions to the problems that the company is facing. But again, as you know, I tell you already, a man like to read and thing. I was reading a Lloyd Best article good years ago, and in that article, Lloyd Best, you know what Lloyd Best say? That Eric Williams was skillful enough to use the civil service like party groups. So you understand that it didn't stay there, because what you get is they pass the baton from generation to generation.
That's the problem.
Yeah, from generation to generation. It come like election time. You put your 7 and your 8 and 9, 10-year-old children in the jersey of a party.
Yeah.
And all on the road whining in front of a music truck and thing. This is what they know. This is what the children know. So you're actually preparing another generation like yourself. You were misled, and you have your next 2-3 other generations being prepared to take over that role that you play in. So this is one of the big problems that the labor movement face, that the unions facing. Yes, they rant and rave because they want increase in pay, but that is not the only thing. That is not the only thing. And I mean, you try to explain it to them and think, but you explain it to them, but then they go back to the party politics thing because it ingrained in them. They're being conditioned.
And I'll be honest with you, I can tell you of a situation where I had, I think it was last year or something, and it was one of my parents, and unfortunately I say this, you know, you have some of them who are the party to the dead.
Yeah.
And I do come from some sort of that background, but one of the good things, I have a grateful for is that I have been able to grow up as an individual who has always looked at things from the outside rather than the inside. So for me, it's not about a party, but it's about issues.
Definitely.
And for me, it's about society, how society is impacted. And therefore, I will not look to cast or support based on what my family tells me, but I will base on my support based on what I see is happening in society.
Yeah.
So for me, that has always been
Yeah.
that particular trend line in which I go down. But I heard one of my family members say this to me, and this was when Petrotrin had closed. She says, "I'm so sorry for the boys and them, and what the union do to them." And I just started to go down a road, and I just
You let go.
let it go.
Yeah.
And I am like, and what has amazed me is that you actually know the truth.
Yeah.
But you choose not to accept the truth, and you choose to accept the lie because you think that is your party.
Yeah.
And you can't accept the fact that it's your party that has put the country in the position where it is.
You know, a lot of people believe that criticizing means that you're no longer loyal to the party. But if you criticize the party constructively, it should strengthen the party.
But it's not just a matter of criticizing and speaking the truth.
Yeah, you know, and this is what they can't accept. This is why it's so dangerous when they prepare the next generation to do the same thing that they're doing. It's not an easy thing to counter. You may have to be as strong as you or me to resist that, to break out of it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to actually bust out of it. You have to kick down that door to get out of that mindset that the graduate here in, you know. It's sickening, you know.
It is. It is.
It's
So,
sickening.
one final thing for the close, and I just want to give one strong bite to T&Tec, to those workers and them as they continue to struggle.
Yeah, I would tell T&Tec workers to keep this struggle going for as long as it takes. Yeah, there will be, as in everything, there will be low moments and there will be high moments. The laws of nature show you the tide does rise and the tide does fall. Do not get despondent because today you see a little bit of workers come out. You understand? You have to keep this struggle going. You have to keep it going. You cannot stop. You can't stop. We don't have no choice, you know. We don't have any other choice but to fight, not just for our rights, but fight for our survival. You know, fight to put food on the table. This is actually the fight, you know. You're fighting for food on the table. You're fighting for a shelter. Yeah, you're fighting to live. Because these people and them don't care how you survive. So long as they could get the job done. It's the same reason why T&Tec not filling the vacancies. And when they don't fill the vacancies, there will be no promotion. Yeah, you won't get any promotion. So you as a young worker will come in, and if T&Tec getting the work done without promoting, without filling the vacancies, why they should do it? And they could use contractors. You have to stop that. You have to keep this fight to stop that. Otherwise the pension plan will be impacted negatively. Yeah, you must have a certain amount of workers to keep contributing to the pension plan. Because if you're only taking out, and more coming out than going in, after a while, you, these young workers, when it's time for you to collect your pension, there'll be nothing left. So you don't have a choice, and individually, you cannot do it. You cannot do it by yourself. You need collective bargaining. That's where the strength is. One person could get up and walk about Trinidad with a placard, but that one person, the impact ain't going to be like 1,000. We have to come together. We have to stay together. Don't ever believe that you could do it on your own, and stop taking the shit, I should say, that passing out for truth. Yeah.
Comrade Fitzroy, thank you very much for this time, and I learned a lot speaking to you during this short time. So thank you very much.